correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Welcome back to the How We Roll Gaming podcast. And this time, it feels like we just recorded a couple of days ago, but it's been like 2 weeks.
I know, right?
Time
sure
has been
flies.
flying.
Time flies when you're having fun.
And in that time, we've had the end of Andor.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally didn't expect him to be Darth Vader's father. We've had the new Superman trailer, which was kind of awesome.
It was. It deserves its own talking point, but we don't have time for that.
Well, and this is the wrong show for that.
That's true.
we might have to squeeze a casual nerdity in about that between now and when the movie comes out.
Yeah, and it's nice to look forward to movies. Again, I'll admit I've had a dry period as far as movies are concerned, but
Fantastic
Superman
Four
does
as
look
well.
good.
Fantastic Four looks good. Like there's some good movies. One that I don't think it's on your radar. Mifregan 2, the robot girl horror movie is getting a sequel. I think that looks fun.
I still need to get out to see Sinners.
Oh, I've heard that's good too.
I've heard that it is phenomenal. I still need to get out to see it.
Yeah, there's a lot of good movies out there that they're kind of overserved by the big blockbuster pictures, but like there's some like Death of the Unicorn is coming out on that I'm looking forward to see on streaming in about a week.
I also am in the process of whittling down my list that I've made of episodes for my next episode that I'll be on of Movie Defenders, because they were reaching out to me for my next episode earlier this week. And so I found my list and I was like, does anybody have dibs on any of these? And they said, nope, none of them. All good choices. And now
You know my choice. You know my choice,
yeah,
Daryl.
Yours is not on my list specifically because of that. Sneak preview for anyone who listens to both of our shows. It will either be The Fisher King, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, True Lies, Kids in the Hall Brain Candy, or Near Dark.
Oh, those are some good choices. Ooh, those.
Yeah, can't wait to see how you narrow those down.
Part of how I'm going to narrow it down is what is available on the streaming services that I have.
That's true. True facts.
Because yes, I have
There.
I have all of those but Near Dark on physical media, but all of our physical media is currently packed up
Me
in
and Lauren,
anticipation of a move.
we're trying to watch a couple movies this week since we're taking a break from Clone Wars, another series that we're doing. But we experienced the fact that a bit of the certain stuff is not on certain streaming platforms, despite them logically should being on them.
Yep.
But we found a way around that.
And then at Chris's suggestion, we need to get Robert in front of Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
I think he'd like it. I think he would like it.
It would be, besides some movies back in, I think it was the 2000s, it'd be the first time I've seen Star Trek in a while.
Oh, well, that's that is fair. And
there's some good Doctor Who coming out.
I understand exactly why Chris recommended Strange New Worlds to be your Star Trek primer.
It's probably a great choice.
It's a very well written and performed show. It has present day production values and production sensibilities, but it still very much has the vibe of
Kind of
the
a mix
original
with
series of classic Star Trek.
it's got a classic, but also a bit some of the sensibilities of the good part of Next Gen.
I mean, there's a lot of next gen that's the good part.
I mean, like
It's
you can't
Voyager.
you can't start Next Gen and be like you can see why people like get like I
It's
don't understand Next Gen.
it's Voyager and Enterprise that I don't talk about.
Yeah, the
This is
only
true.
Star Trek news I've heard recently is that I think some developers that used to be with Telltale Games is now starting to create a Star Trek game.
Which would
Right
be
on.
great. Telltale is a good company. That's just like they overextended themselves, but that's a whole different conversation. Also, we should
And
focus back in.
and then spoiler alert, related to Star Trek, um, I am kind of working behind the scenes with somebody off the show that we will have some show content in the hopefully near future as we both learn to play second edition Star Trek Adventures.
Are you two timing this, man?
No, it will be
Or aren't
for
you
this
just the guys
show.
with connections, huh?
I mean, when someone else that both of you know from Gamer Nation Con reaches out and says, "Hey, I just bought Star Trek Adventures 2 and I would love to play with all of you guys." And I say, "Hey, yeah, we both need to learn the system before next year's Gamer Nation
Yes,
Con.
yes, yes.
Would you be willing to come on the show and do an episode about learning a new system with us?" And they say, "Sure." I'm going to jump at it.
Oh,
Yeah,
sir,
but you
me and
forget
Robert.
Nick and I are more of the side of antisocial in some cases.
You both know this person.
Okay, we're playing it
True.
out for the bit.
And that means I've seen them twice in my life.
That's plenty of times. Anyway, I suppose we should, get on with things here.
Yes, let's get on with
Oh
it.
yeah, we got a show to do.
We do have a show to do.
Our podcast is a proud member of the D20 Radio Network, alongside a great other great gaming podcasts.
The network's flagship show is, as we all know, the Order 66 podcast, which nobody listens to.
Nobody listens to
Nobody.
it.
I've heard it's dedicated to the Star Wars role-playing game.
Now, Order 66 is on a bit of hiatus right now, but in the most recent episodes, GM Chris and GM Phil have been laying out their own unique setting for the Star Wars RPG. It's set some 100 years or so after the rise of Skywalker, and the Fractured Republic explores the various factions that have arisen after the New Republic failed in the sequel trilogy, with political intrigue, action, and all of the hallmarks of Star Wars seen through a new lens.
That sounds a little
So,
similar to something that we're doing. But
yes. Well,
Yes, we're just a little closer behind. Maybe we can help feed their story of how the Republic fell.
well, and
or we could take a little from them too.
That's
and I don't remember if either of you two got to, but I was able to play in Phil's game at Gamer Nation Con that was set in the Fractured Republic.
I was
And
there
even
too.
though it only had hints of the flavor of Fractured Republic, but it was so much fun.
Oh, it was very fun. I played.
I saw a little bit of it where Nick was playing, but I wasn't able to get into it myself.
There was some.
So,
It had a whole lot of fun world building and a whole lot of interesting facets.
so be sure to check out the Order 66 podcast wherever your podcasts are, well, I guess not sold, downloaded.
I feel like it depends on subscribed. Not exactly the terminology.
bookmarked on your webpage.
Sure.
Web Zone.
So now to get into our topic this time around. If there's one thing that motivates players, it's loot. Loot and XP. If there's two things that motivate players, it's loot and XP. And maybe pizza. Amongst the things that motivate players are loot,
Now,
XP.
now, Daryl, let's not get into a Spanish Inquisition sketch.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Too late.
So, loot and XP, they're the sorts of payout that allow players to demonstrate how their characters have taken part in a series of adventures and progressed from them. But how can you make sure that they don't equip themselves with an I win button? Grow so wealthy that there's no real reason they should be adventuring together or at all anymore, or simply become so powerful that they can easily walk through any situation without breaking a sweat.
When it
That
comes to
is the question.
that is a great question. When it comes to rewarding your players, it's a line that deserves discussing. Allow me to waffle a bit, but ultimately it can be decided by the individual role-playing game system. They have suggestions, but they aren't the ultimate arbiters as to how everything works. We've played multiple systems together, and they have multiple approaches to rewarding your players and advancing their characters, and how that may change based on story, campaign, and how your players are involved.
Yes, because we've
Yeah.
done Aliens and Walking Dead, which are the same thing. We've done Cyberpunk, D&D, where we use the milestone system,
Which is
Star
not even
Wars, of
the main
course.
version,
Star Wars.
which is a variant version. D&D, the milestone is a variant version of progression.
Yes, and then we've done Avatar, which is different in its
Unique.
XP. Very unique.
I am still in prep for your Legend of the Five Rings coming up, so I have not taken a close look at how progression works there. So
Honestly,
The XP works a little bit kind of like how best comparison we have right now, I'd say it kind of works like Alien and Walking Dead. There's a little bit more to it. They go more off how long you play rather than what you actually accomplish. But I'm probably gonna loosely follow that description.
sort of. I'd say like based on that description, sounds similar, but not exactly like milestone. But dude, let's dive into these different ideas of advancement as well as also looting, because I'm also starting I'm gonna start. I'm in the process of starting the Fallout campaign, and you're very excited about a certain aspect of looting in that game.
Yes.
How about we start with XP?
Yes. XP, the thing that makes your squishy little beginning player turn into the tanky player in the future that can tank off 5 enemies at once.
Or the
XP.
wizard who can still squishy, but he can nuke 100 enemies from a mile away.
Or the rogue who can backstab someone in broad daylight because they got the sneaky skill and then crit them every time over and over again.
Interestingly enough, before we settled on this topic for this episode, just a couple of days before, I saw a discussion on, I don't remember if it was Threads or Reddit, talking about something kind of related that was balance of your adversaries to your players and how you don't want to fudge too much one way or the other when you're reskinning an existing adversary, because if you take an adversary that's meant for a starting level group, the more experienced players are going to walk all over them. But if you tweak it in the wrong way, then they're going to walk all over your players.
And that
Exactly.
itself is a
You don't
whole
want you
other
don't want the sewer
discussion.
rat to become a big bad evil guy.
Right. Well, maybe you do.
I mean,
If we were
we've
doing
had
Warhammer and it was Skaven, yes.
Whisper Base. We did have one guy that got beaten up for like half the session, and then became a minor antagonist later on.
That was because it was hilarious, not because you planned it.
Again, that's a part of the discussion, but it's equally a discussion to discuss like leveling up enemies to scale of your players. But let's keep on scaling players.
Right. So XP is what most people think about when they think about advancing characters and how characters grow.
The basic
Um,
reward. It's when you see number go up, you beat an enemy, you get a point value that goes up.
Yes, very much video game esque logic.
that is classic D&D style XP. Everything that you do has an XP value that
Everything
you're
that you
awarded for
do, every
accomplishing it.
enemy that you kill, XP.
It's why you spend an hour killing rats in World of Warcraft.
And personally, I am more of a fan of systems like Star Wars, Alien, what have you, where the XP isn't tied to specifically the enemies that you defeat and things like that, where it's more of a general range based upon accomplishing the goals of the session, both
And
as a character and as a player.
and
Yes, and
I prefer
sorry, go
based
ahead.
on more story mode. Story. Do you accomplish a story, or if like you do beat the big big monster in this session, like yeah, you get a little bit more. Or do you progress the story more, but no one beat the big monster, like you got that much more, but it's like it's usually a relatively like the same pool with just one or two characters getting like a little bit extra, depending on if they did something really exemplary.
Yes, and I'll admit I've had to get myself out of the video game mindset when it comes to Star Wars specifically, because I think Nick can attest to this. When some of the sessions are more story based, like there's not a big fight, it's more just progressing the plot, getting into character roles. I have a habit of leaning into low XP results at the end rather than when there's a big fight that they've gone through.
Which that's still totally valid.
And that's your
That
that's your style, and that should be something that
True,
like
but I don't want it to come off as in I'm punishing them. Like if you don't get into a fight, you're not getting more XP.
oh, it'd be more
well,
the idea is like you should let them know that like you that's your style of XP giving. Like that's a big part of it
or
as well. Like
what I have done before in a situation like that is I've told my players, okay, today's session was kind of low stakes. And so as a result, the XP payout is going to be lower because the stakes were lower. You all did amazing. And what I might try to do there, if I know it's going to be a quote unquote low stakes game that's going to have a lower than usual XP payout, what I'll do is I'll look for things that the players did that
to
stood
get
out to give those players that went the extra mile a little extra XP. Hey, Robert really leaned into the role play today since it wasn't a combat heavy session. So to stay invested, he leaned into the role play and he knocked it out of the park with that
or
great scene. So Robert gets an extra 5 XP.
or Daryl managed to it wasn't a difficult slicing check, but that information helped another character that was already pretty good at their role really excel at that. So rather than like give it all to them, I shared a bit of XP between the two.
And something else that I've seen that I've done in the past, it depends on the system, but if I know that there's going to be, it's one of those low stakes sessions
Yeah.
again, I assign players different, for want of a better term, administrative roles for the game.
That makes
So,
sense.
Nick, I would like you to track the initiative for us whenever we get into structured time. So, for Nick, you tracked the initiative for everyone for the whole session, so you get an extra 5 XP. Robert, Nick did the initiative, but you took care of keeping track of where everybody was on the map. So you get an extra 5. Things like that. I
Oh,
find
we
things
did
to
that.
reward
True.
the
True.
players
We
for.
And
did
that's a
that
good.
during several sessions when we had remote players and we had to like make camera checks to like determine where everyone was. I remember we
Yeah.
did that once. Yeah.
So if you feel like you're going to be really light on awarding XP, especially if it's a system like Walking Dead has a very stringent XP system. It has a series of questions that, as the GM, you ask at the end of the session, and for every yes answer, that is 1 XP. XP payout
Even
is really low because it doesn't take too terribly much to advance, but you can still look for things outside of that list. Okay, well, this is an extra point of XP to give.
Yeah, because I think the questions are like 5 questions in
There's
total.
5 or 6. There's one
and
that
it,
none of you
and
have
they,
ever done,
and they can
but
always
Yeah, that
and
one.
those are suggestions. They could always be
yeah,
the GM's questions. But
it's
similarly,
the
That's
one
good.
that you have never done is the dearly departed monologue at the beginning.
Yeah, we were busy that one time. One of our
at
characters
one
died.
time,
But depending on how Nick goes in the next few sessions, if we know him, if we know he died, maybe.
I mean, you
well,
might think he died and still do a dearly departed. I mean, remember Glenn under the dumpster? Everybody thought Glenn was dead.
but then
True.
but Glenn got better, and he beat up Negan in a different series, also done by Free League.
Yes, and then at least what I like about Cyberpunk is they're also XP or what they call improvement points heavy as well. And their skills and traits as well as roll abilities are semi expensive, as I'm sure you both know. They are expensive to upgrade. So how it works is that instead of tracking what each person did, which you can still do because they do have like, okay, slot them into what type of player they are, like a role player or a tactical heavy player. What I do
I
is
will
I
say that
follow.
a great example is the fact that it's a system that did give you multiple ideas, multiple
Yes, and what I
systems
like
for how to
about it
work
is
it.
that since you guys are a group, because you work together, how the XP works is like, okay, how does this factor in? How well did they do on their mission? Did they succeed, first of all? And then did they complete any side objectives? How smooth did the gig go? And the more better answers you got, the more XP you get, or the more IP you get. So I like it. It's, at least in my opinion, it's a very good way of
But
designating what they achieved.
an equally different system, but also one that I very much like is Delta Green, where it's like progression isn't done by regular granting of awards. It's based on the fact that you tried something that you didn't have a skill in.
Yes,
Yes,
that's what
which
I like about that.
I I don't remember what system it is, but I remember playing another system that was similar to that. That you progressed in skills that you attempted to use. If you did not use a given skill during the session, you couldn't spend your XP to advance that skill.
But
I
I feel like,
know that's
especially
Aliens.
for
I don't know which one you may be talking about.
I
No,
especially
It was years ago. I don't remember.
I especially feel it works great in Delta Green in that it is similar to Aliens, a squishy system. Where like
But
Yeah.
their XP is a little different. Instead of getting XP, it basically just asks, okay, did you fail any of your rolls? If you failed, okay, roll a d4 -1, and you increase that skill by whatever results you get.
but it does feel realistic in this like, okay, you tried something. You learned something.
Right.
Yes. Or in the case of the natural ability, it's just, okay, one, you survived whatever encounter you had. You probably got jumbled in your mind, and you're definitely closer to insanity, but by doing so,
You
you get a
know a
little
little bit
bump on your
more about
unnatural.
this. You know a little bit more. Again, like it works for the system. It's like you want to push yourself. You want to like, okay, I want to learn more and do more. But if you want to learn more occult, guess what? You're playing a deadly game.
Yeah, and if we transition back to Star Wars a little bit, what I like about their
Yeah.
adventure modules, or at least kind of what they do, is that they'll say, yeah, you get the XP for completing whatever act the module's in, but then it'll also say, okay, if the players did this with this NPC, or if they accomplish this throughout the act, they get additional bonus XP. It kind of gets you in the mindset, okay, yeah, you want to complete whatever session you're doing, but think on how they did it as well, and give them XP accordingly.
Right. Now,
Again, it's and I guess now we have to talk about like what everyone knows XP is. The classic D&D, the boring type of XP. Standard XP gain is you fight the monster, you split it amongst the players. How
yeah,
much XP?
I said it earlier. I'll be more explicit about it right now. I think that's kind of boring.
It's boring. It's incredibly boring.
Yes, I personally like milestone better. It's just saying, okay, have you progressed or accomplished something very extraordinary and unique? Good, you get a level.
And
That
and then
can be part of beating a big monster. But it's like it shouldn't be like, okay, A got like 17 hits on the monster, and but B got the final kill on the monster, and then we gotta like
and,
divide that into like it. That's not just because I don't like
Very
math, but
video
it's like,
game MMO RPG logic.
yeah,
it's just
and
like it's not.
personally,
It doesn't feel like accomplishment.
Yeah, it doesn't feel
and
good when you took all the damage and then someone gets that last kill in and gets all the XP.
and personally, I've never been a huge fan of D&D style level-based progression,
Same.
whether it's
It's just
XP or milestone, because it's like you wake up the next morning and suddenly, boom, you're better at everything.
at least milestone you can flavor text that. Base stat D&D is like, oh, the next day I'm like, oh man,
I'll
I'm
admit, it
somehow
works.
like stronger. It's like at the very least, wait for like milestone. It's like we'll fast forward a week or two. Like that's what I've been doing with you guys. With
Yeah,
my
a good
milestone stuff.
example of what Daryl means. It's like, for all you who play Baldur's Gate 3, they use XP progression. That's your first
'Cause it's
hint that it works really
classic.
well in a video game setting. But then
It's
they also
classic
said,
D&D.
yeah, but then they also said we're capping the level at 12 because if you guys went to the full 20, you'd have god tier like spells that would just make every fight meh.
You know that's a nice segue to a topic that I wanted to bring up regarding rewarding XP. It's nice to want to be generous in giving your players XP. They're
It's true.
doing a great job telling the story with each other and with you. You want to reward them for that. But you need to be careful to not over reward them.
This is true.
Yes,
By
Nick
way of
knows
a
all our
caution. Or sorry, go ahead, Robert.
Nick knows all our jokes about when he'll give XP and we're like, oh, 30,000? Okay.
Now,
But I've been
Nick
through mini campaigns, and I know that like I'll shoot that down because I know that like I've seen campaigns that have gone to like too generous GMs, and like that goes
You,
badly.
I think you know the story that I'm about to tell, Nick, as a cautionary tale.
Yes.
I took part in a very short-lived Star Wars campaign that the GM is a wonderful guy. I want to preface with that. This was the first game in the system that he had GM'd, and he was very, very excited to GM it. He was very, very excited to get to the meat of the storyline that he had in mind. And he was very, very grateful for all of us who were playing for coming to the table with good ideas for our characters and for really diving in and playing. We played about 3 or 4, maybe 5 sessions of the
I
game
think I think it was more you
before
said.
it fell victim to the enemy of all role playing games, scheduling. And now an average XP
One day
award,
will defeat time itself.
That's funny.
the average XP award in a game of the Star Wars system is somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 XP.
40
That's
if 40 if you do really good, accomplish a lot, and high
Yeah.
stakes and all that.
By
again,
the
that's pretty
end
generous, but still, they're great.
by the end of the 4 or 5 sessions of this campaign that we played, I meant to pull up my character for this campaign before we started recording and just forgot, so that I could tell you exactly how much XP he had. But we had over 1,000 XP.
Oh, that physically hurts. Oh,
By the end of the second
oh,
session, I had gone through 2 specialization trees
yeah. I
in their
mean,
entirety.
specialization trees. I mean, like on average, that's like
Over
100 to about
Oh no, so I mean
160
so
to fill it out.
180
this is
one
the most
one
we heard. And I don't think you
180
ever
plus
told me like the whole like.
it's like 200-300
Oh
XP
God!
to get through a tree, just ballparking, because the bottom tier is 25 per
Obviously,
per
yeah.
True.
node, and there's 4 of them.
Still 1,000. You could fill 2, maybe 3, depending on what trees you pick.
Okay, well, you're Goku from anime. If anime people know
Well,
that, like
and on
in
top
terms
of
of Star
that,
Wars.
Or
on
you're
top of
Doom
that,
guy.
Mm-hmm.
on top of that, I
I
had
know he doesn't
a
have
couple of
weapons; just
extra
has
trees.
skills.
On top of that, I had a couple of extra trees to spend XP on, because even though I started off, I was like, you know what? I just want to be a rebel pilot. You know, while I am naturally drawn to force stuff in the Star Wars games, I don't want to be a force user. I don't want to be force sensitive. I just want to be a rebel pilot. And the GM granted me force sensitive emergent at the end of the first
Okay,
session.
now we're getting into part two of our discussion, and maybe
No, we'll
part
get more into part
2.5.
2
Oh,
of
this is
we'll
still
get more into
XP.
we'll
Yeah,
get more into
You have
part
a great
2.
story about part 2, Nick.
yeah.
Yeah,
But that's what the
we'll
one thing I like about Star Wars. Still, like, yeah, you can have your tree, you can have your force powers. They're both expensive though, so you gotta balance or
yeah.
decide whether you want more
So
your career or your force powers.
and so I started off as pilot hotshot, and I added another pilot tree, and then I
I think it was
was
just like
granted
straight pilot.
force sensitive emergent, so I got a lot of that, and I had 1 or 2 for I could go back and pull up the character sheet, but
I mean, you said this was like 4 sessions, you said?
4 or 5 sessions, yeah.
Oh,
So that's like what, an average of 250 a session?
Yeah, something like that.
He sold me. He sold me, and that's before he. I think you were getting to your
No,
Grant.
we'll get
Your
we'll get to the loot part of that
Yeah,
campaign when we talk about loot.
yeah.
So put a pin in the rest of this.
oh, you are not ready for
So
that.
so I I appreciate and understand where this GM was coming from.
Oh,
I don't want that to be mistaken. I don't want anyone to think that I am talking crap about this GM because he's a great guy. I
he
talk to him
comes from.
occasionally.
I knew him
He's talked
too.
about coming back to some of our groups, which
I
I am
knew him
totally
too.
fine with.
Yeah,
But
and
I
how
would say that
and XP
he
aside,
came from a
how was
good
the
heart.
story?
The story once we got past the first session, I had some issues with simply because again, first time GM and he was excited
Yeah, that's
about it.
totally understandable.
He was excited about it and was setting the stage, but in setting the stage, we sat through narration and watching clips of the Battle of Hoth because we were there, and then we would cut over to what we were doing at the Battle of Hoth, and then we would
Which
get more
can be done,
narration of what we knew from the movies.
which
Which,
could have been done
again,
well. But
that's
I know.
new,
yeah, first time GM in the system. So I don't begrudge that.
and I
It
played with
was
him one session, and he had incredible ideas. It
yeah,
just
he had great ideas. I loved where he was going with
and
this. I could see where he wanted to go with it, but
he's just a bit too intense and a bit too committed to his initial idea that he couldn't like. It's from as a GM that was GMing for him. It's like he had an idea, and it's like, okay, I need you to modify that idea. And it's like, okay, I'll modify that idea. And
And
he
yes,
just like didn't modify it like
but
enough to fit.
but
But it's
so
like he had the energy that I love his energy. He's a good guy.
and you have to be careful that you're not we mentioned it in kind of the intro to the topic. You don't want them to get to the point that they can walk through and do anything without breaking a sweat.
yes, and that's why. Again, I'm going back to Cyberpunk. What I like about
Mhm.
Cyberpunk is that the developers understood. Yeah, as these people level, they're going to get better abilities. They're going to hit harder. So they actually brought in a concept, what they call hardened enemies. Basically, these are the enemies that once your group gets really successful, they have good stats and everything. Now you can bring out these hardened enemies. That's basically, if you ever played a game, it's like they level scale to your player. So this is what this is, more of a level scale to your RPG characters, not to the point where they're like dodging every hit and hitting you for like 100 points of damage, but they can still take a hit and
Oh,
deal it
and
back out. So the stakes
definitely
don't
great,
become just like slide walk. Not every enemy
definitely
is going to
great,
be Adam Smasher, but they're not going to be Corpo Soldier number 2.
definitely a great example for like a future session, a future topic where we discuss like leveling enemies in regards to players.
Yes.
Yep.
And then, of course, with XP, we've talked about too much XP, but then there's also the other caveat of you don't want to give too little XP to
That's
where it
that's
Right.
feels to where the characters feel like getting XP is like squeezing blood out of a stone.
Right. You want to be sure that you are incentivizing the players to come back and be involved and keep participating. And if you're stingy on the XP, then
that
you know,
will hurt. That's just like players wanting to engage, but also players coming back. Honestly, I'd say like if I had to like choose a factor of like be a little bit more generous with XP than not, because that at least keeps gets players coming back.
Right. You're giving them that reward for
Just
coming in.
being there. They're because they should be doing something, and
Nick,
always make them feel like they're doing. If they're doing something, reward them for doing something.
Nick, you saying being there, you are both teeing me up tonight with segues. Thank you. This is a topic that years ago on the old FFG Star Wars forums, this was a hotly debated topic for a month or so. How do you guys feel about XP for players who aren't at a session?
Oh, that's a complicated issue.
It's complicated, and I definitely know, at least in my experience, it's up to the player because one of our players, Betsy, she has literally told me, hey, if I'm not there, I shouldn't get XP. I don't want XP. I want to be there to get the XP. So you definitely first ask your
She told
player if
me.
they're comfortable with that.
She told me the same thing. I've never made a whole like. She did the same thing with me. She told me that. There's also I've never had that given before, but normally I would like, okay, you're not there. I will give you half or the lowest minimum
Yeah,
of XP.
yeah,
Is
Yeah,
because I
my
the
don't want to feel like I'm punishing them for not being there, but I also
because
don't
there's
want to
the
give them the full XP because, well, you weren't a part of it. So
and
you,
it's
that
you
that
didn't
was
midway
do the thing.
compromise.
But
that
there's
was the
also like
crux.
the case of like everyone. This is my idea is like the fact that like this is a hobby and you all have real life things to do. I
And
will
that
not.
was the
I will.
crux.
I will not ever punish you. Like it'd be like if someone said like, "Oh, a family member passed away. I have to go to the funeral." It's like I'm not gonna punish you for that.
Well, and
That's the
that
sign
I'd
that
of
be
was
an
a
the
edgy.
crux.
monster.
That was the whole crux of the conversation on the FFG forums. There were two basic schools of thought. The one being, well, not so much that the player wasn't there, but the character didn't take part in the experience. Therefore, does the character get experience points? Because they weren't there going through everything to progress.
I guess
The
where
other
I go with
thought
like
being,
half or minimal.
the other thought being, well, I don't want to punish my players and I want all of the PCs on a relatively level field. So, and if I give
Oh,
this
I
person who has
have,
to
but
miss
yeah,
sessions
yeah.
no XP for a session, then that character falls behind and I inadvertently have overpowered adversaries against them.
Yep, you're gonna make a squishy person, and that's why when some of our players come back after a long time, like 3 or 4 weeks, sometimes we got to be like, okay, I need to at least give you enough XP to where you are not lagging behind everybody. So I need
Right.
to figure out a good
Yeah.
amount.
But we're just in terms of again, like you guys know that I'm more of a story guy, so like it's like okay,
Yeah.
you were off screen, you were doing stuff, so here's your XP. It's not as much as everyone else, but it's slightly beneath what they got. But you are training up relevant skills that you wanted to do. And that's
Yeah,
what
and
you're doing.
I'm more good at making combat, so I'm like, okay, I don't want to make you squishy to where my enemies take you out in 2 rounds. But like Daryl said, I also don't want you to be killing them left and right. So here's a good amount of XP.
The best example is our Whisper based game. Kyle has been the kind of inconsistent a whole lot, but I've been giving him extra scenes where I've given him like, okay, do you want to do force powers or do you want to do lightsaber skills? You can't do anything else. Everything else you have to do is only if you are in an actual assassin, and that's what he's been sort of like building up and stuff.
We've been really talking heavily about Star Wars because it's kind of
It's
that type of setting or that type of system that you have to ask these questions. I'll say, in
but
at
it's
least Walking Dead,
yeah.
combat's pretty much the same depending on what skills you choose. So losing
Every
XP isn't
skill
a
is
horrible
skill.
thing that happens.
Skill is equally be distributed. It's like
Yeah, because enemies, like human enemies, yeah, there's a little bit of a skill gap there. In Walking Dead, zombies don't really have stats, they're more environmental hazards.
They're
so
more a
you
force
just
of nature.
and
Yeah, they're more
honestly,
force
it
in
depends on
nature, they don't
and
change.
how you're planning. It's like, do you want to be like, oh, I want to build defenses. I want to build. I want to be more
Yeah,
more
how did that fence building go for you last time, Nick?
very bad.
Hey, we had a really great improv scene playing soldiers.
Yes, you did.
It was really
Yes, you
fun.
did. Part
I
of the
think we're getting.
consensus that came up in that discussion on the FFG boards about present versus not present players, and I agreed with this, and then I constantly forget to do it in my session zeros, is you bring it up in session 0 and say, here's how I handle XP for sessions that you have to miss. I
Uh,
understand that life happens. Here's how I
yeah.
handle XP. Is everybody good with that?
Oh yeah, that's so
Honestly,
obvious.
I
Why haven't I done that either?
honestly I do agree with that, but also I feel like it should just. I have a standard like statement of like about like halfway or like depending on the situation. That it's like I'd rather address it when it happens, so I don't put it in my Assassin Zero. But you could put that in your Assassin Zero, and you could put that in our Assassin Zero playbook.
Well, remember,
Yeah,
we're
I
going to
think we're gonna add
revisit.
that to the manifesto.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, we're going to revisit the manifesto every year.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
That
So,
might be that'd be a
Speaking
new
so,
chapter
dad,
to it.
so we need to go in and make a note now because we're going to sleep between now and then.
I'm already doing it.
You're already sleeping?
No, he's the note keeper.
I totally am not sleeping right now.
But anything else that we can think of regarding XP that we would want to bring up?
I'll be the devil's advocate for classic D&D XP. It's like it is the basic. It's what's expected. It's in all video games, and it's in Baldur's Gate. It's what's prescribed in every edition. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not our style.
There's nothing wrong with it. Other games have simply improved on the concept.
Exactly, and of
I
course,
if that's what works for you and your group, because it's worked for groups since the beginning, since
It's
Gary
worked for 50
Gygax.
years.
exactly, and I'll add for those of you starting out or choosing a system, as far as XP goes, at least if you want a good base point or guidelines, look into how the book says XP should be handled. They usually know a little bit of what they're talking about.
There's been 5 editions and it's barely changed.
5.5.
5.5. It's
Technically
like,
6.5 because there was
I still
3.5.
call it 6.
mm,
So that's the XP part of the conversation. Then there's loot, and loot can lead to a similar imbalance, but it seems so much more benign
oh, it is.
because
It's you could easily.
You could
Uh,
easily overdo it.
I mean, going back to D&D, even though I'm not playing a character with much in the way of archery, Nick, how many times have I joked that I want Hank's energy bow from the cartoon?
I believe it's a data ends in Y.
Yeah, and there are stats for it now.
Yes, I
Yes.
know there are stats for it now, but it's like every single session you have made that joke.
Or if
Because
we
I've-
want something. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say I've wanted a character with that energy bow since I saw the cartoon in the 80s. So,
Which I'm not opposed to you getting, but it needs to be. Again, it's a thing that you need to earn.
Yes, and giving an even more obvious example, at least in Star Wars comparisons, you probably don't want to give your group in the second session a fully functioning lightsaber.
Oh, I have a specific example. You don't want to give Mace Windu's lightsaber.
Nick, what did you do?
Nick didn't do anything. We're going to take the pin out of that short campaign with amazing XP that I was talking about earlier.
We're
taking the pin out of that one, and we're going
didn't.
back to it.
Please tell me he
because
didn't.
he was there.
After I
It's your
was
story.
after I was granted Force Sensitive Emergent, a Jedi character that we encountered who is the one who basically unlocked my Force ability.
At the Battle of Hoth.
No, this was after the Battle of Hoth.
Oh, yeah.
This is wherever we went right after the Battle of Hoth. All of us were bequeathed, using some D&D terms, legendary items. Stephanie, who was playing kind of a prototype of her Mandalorian character from Special Missions, was granted Jango Fett's pistols. And I forget, there were three other players, I forget what they were granted. They were granted named character weapons.
But you.
And I was bequeathed Mace Windu's lightsaber.
Okay, one, where the heck did this random NPC get all this stuff? And two,
all that level of stuff, like, that's like.
Are you still like grunts in the rebellion?
Yeah. We might have been using night level play, I don't remember. But that's neither here nor there.
The first night level play was when you and your family was here. So, like, you guys were at least, like, high level, not official night level.
Right. So, I was given Mace Windu's lightsaber. Now, keep in mind, this is also after, so my unreasonable ask when creating my character is I decided that I would like to have a Night Sister energy bow. And I came up with a way that I would have come into possession of it. And it was totally up to the GM to say yes or no. The GM gave me yes. So my starting weapon was a Night Sister energy bow.
Yeah, that's
and then I got Mace Windu's lightsaber.
I mean, that's a strong weapon. I put this
it's a strong, decent weapon. Definitely shouldn't be starting equipment.
So to give kind of my reasoning is, I kind of decided that I wanted the bow. You both know that whenever possible, I like to cast my characters.
Yes.
And I cast Stephen Amell from Arrow as my character.
Good choice.
And I was like, hey, even though I'm not doing Oliver Queen character-wise, I found a great picture of him, knocking an arrow. I was like, if I went in and doctored this to be an energy bow, and the GM was good with it.
He's good the Photoshop. Yeah, that's the thing you're good at.
And so, yeah, I had Mace Windu's lightsaber. Actually, I think Mace Windu's lightsaber is what unlocked my being given that lightsaber is what unlocked my force.
That's what you described it to me. It's like you were given that, and that's what made
I want to know who this NPC was that had all these named character weapons.
His enemies.
That can it's not an RPG horror story, but it's an RPG I'm not sure that's cool story. But this NPC that had all of the
I know the guy.
yeah, and I understand why he did it this way. Unfortunately, the character was just used as an NPC, but the character that had all of these items was my PC from a campaign that we had both been players in, who was a Jedi.
Well, I'm just getting the vibe of those RPG video games where you've finished all this stuff, cleared dungeons, whatever, and then you meet that one merchant that always seems to have the best equipment, and you're just like, how do you keep
The,
finding this stuff?
the only reason that that I say that it falls into I'm not sure that's cool territory is I wish that he had asked me ahead of time, can I
Okay,
use
I
your
agree with you.
character as an NPC in this campaign? Can I use your character from campaign A as an NPC in campaign B? And I
That's
probably
fair.
would have said yes. And I understand why he didn't, because he wanted it to be a surprise to my character.
Yeah.
But yes, it's,
I took it in the spirit that it was intended, that he liked that character of mine and felt that it would be an appropriate character to slot into this position to kind of, bounce everybody off by giving them these items. So,
yeah, I think he really did just fall down the beginning game
Yeah.
master mistakes of just too much in too little time.
You want to give too
yeah.
many, so many. Again,
And
like,
I've definitely had that feeling before, especially when I started. I was like, okay, they've killed these enemies, they're doing the usual looting. It's like, okay, I want to give them decent stuff, but I don't want to give them like really good stuff either, to where it's just a cakewalk going forward.
oh,
So what can
as
I
a
give them that's acceptable but also
as a
good?
as a D&D guy, I've realized like if I make a high magic world, yeah, bags of holding, that's gonna be pretty easy to get.
Yeah,
Where
or
like,
a certain hobgoblin portrait that ran for like thousands of gold.
well, yeah, you went in there. It's like you didn't. That's unusual, but it's like the idea is like, oh, we in a magical world, it's like, oh, you guys have at least like two bags of holding between you. It's like that's just a regular thing. It's like
Uh,
you guys finding
speak.
a ancient goblin portrait just like in a goblin tomb. It's like,
Yeah, that is what
yeah,
I do like about Eberron. It's like, yeah, you
you
have
went in
magical
there,
items, but so do most other people in the world.
but it's
Now,
like, yeah, that's what makes those goblin like portraits, goblin stuff. It's like, oh, you actually went into an ancient tomb. That's weird and unusual. It's like, yeah, you can carry that all out in
Let's just
your
say
bag of holding.
we've abused bag of holding in my character's telekinesis abilities. So
yes.
Oh, you've abused that.
While we're on the subject, though, of that painting that brought us quite a bit of gold, that's the other thing that you need to be careful about is making the characters too flush with money.
This is true.
yes.
Now,
Where have we
yes,
heard that before?
well, there's a sidebar in the Edge of the Empire core rulebook called "Keep Them Hungry," and I don't quite agree with that.
I
I don't want to
also had
keep
a
the
problem with that, but I also cannot speak on that because
I
please be kind to me, Daryl.
well, I was going to say I appreciate the spirit of that sidebar in that you don't want the players the player
I
characters to
understand the
become too
concept.
flush with money.
Keep them hungry. Keep them going for uh, for that. It's like
And it's okay to give them windfalls, but I used this example when somebody online not too long ago in a Facebook group or Reddit group asking about the Star Wars system and that specific sidebar. I was like, don't keep them destitute. Let them have big windfalls from time to time.
Obviously, yeah.
But when you give them big windfalls, also throw an obstacle in their way that can cut into that windfall. And a great example story-wise is outside of RPGs, but there's a comics miniseries based on the TV series Firefly / follow-up movie Serenity called
Yes.
Serenity Better Days. And the comic miniseries opens with the crew of Serenity having this great job that goes perfectly well, and they make a big score and make a lot of money out of it. But then something happens that basically puts a target on their backs and also requires them to, by the end of the story, they have to spend all of that money that they made.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. And that's a good way to do it. Like,
Honestly, that's put us back into like a campaign that we're doing in D&D, the Hopeless Situation Warriors. They had everything going for them.
oh yeah, after that first session, certain people, Daryl, had a lot of money.
They have a large amount of coin, but that doesn't solve their problems.
Also, making a tavern is expensive.
Yes. But we went into it knowing that it was a money sink that would help Nick out mechanically in being a money sink for us.
Yep. And it was also fun, at least a little tangent. It's fun how we opened the tavern and we started with high end stuff rather than low end stuff. We're actually trying to find low end alcohol because we have too much high end alcohol.
Now, Nick has been asking me to go gentle on him. Nick, that gives the suggestion that you have experience with at least one campaign where the PCs were maybe a little too flush with cash.
Nick.
Do we
Nick.
want to traumatize the viewers?
We
I
have
mean-
to. This is important.
We're not going to go into the whole trauma. We're not going to have a full therapy session.
Well, we'd have to involve your son because he has great insight.
Well, again, we're
into
not going to
that.
go into full details on it.
We just need to hit the certain
we're-
points.
We're going to hit the bullet points that apply to the topic that we're talking about right now. And that is that due to some very good gambling rolls, one of the PCs came into literally trillions of credits.
And to Nick's credit, this player was like a beta tester for the Star Wars RPG. He knew the ins and outs.
He hadn't done beta testing for the gambler tree, but he had studied the gambler tree and figured out all of the best broken exploits for it that are still
But he
within the rules.
was a beta tester for one of
The point is,
soldier tree.
this player we know, he's really good at finding the ways to break the system.
Finding loopholes in the rules is written. And this PC, rather than keeping
but
all of those trillions of credits,
I will say one thing. I will say that I acknowledge the fact that I will swallow that responsibility. That I feel I should do that. It's like I will not blame him. He played the game how the game was made, and I was, as a player, did not know the game as well. So that's what I'm saying.
But still, well,
on topic. Continue.
He did, to his credit, he did not hold on to all of those trillions of credits for himself.
Yes.
but distributed those trillions of credits equally among all of the PCs, such that each of the PCs had at least 1 trillion credits.
And didn't you guys like literally own planets?
No, not
Yes.
just planets, sectors of planets.
And we had enough credits that we invested those in money making enterprises that
Made more money.
made more money, so the credits were never depleted. They continued to grow.
They had
And
their
then
own corporate
if
sector.
I remember correctly, your characters
Infinite corporate
asked the
sector.
dreaded question.
Yes, I did ask the question at one point because we continued to go out adventuring. 2 of the characters had had entire paramilitary forces at their beck and call, and I
Rivaling the
literally
Empire.
turned to everyone in character one day and said, "Why are we all still out here doing this?"
And that's a question you don't want your players to ever ask as a GM. Why are we still here?
Daryl, I'll give you the answer to the question that I don't think you realize that I left that that room and I cried
I'm sorry, Nick.
because
Oh, Nick.
not your fault. But I was like, I realized how far everything had gone, and I was
Yes.
like,
Now,
I do not have control.
That's just
Now,
a really big, extreme example of too much.
and
And again,
I like to
I
like
say
to think
that is my. And again, I admit that to you. I admit that to everyone. It's like I made a mistake. There were like like roughly around like 20 different mistakes that created this. But like ultimately, it does come from the same fact that like you have to control how you award players.
and in some cases you can leave that up to chance. There are plenty of random loot tables. Robert loves him some random loot tables.
Yes,
That's why I like Fallout.
That's why we're
But
doing a Fallout game. He's gonna love it. He's gonna love Fallout.
as a GM, if something comes up on the random loot table that falls into the category of too good to be true or comes close to an I win button, it's a good idea. A way that you can handle that is to almost make it a monkey's paw.
Yeah.
You have the I win button, but there are consequences to using the I win button.
Especially in D&D. It's like, okay,
You have the cursed artifact.
you have a sort of +5 damage. Guess what? You can't put it down. You put it down, you die.
Mm-hmm.
Or that sounds stupid, but it's like you can flavor it however you want. But it's like, guess what? Your fighter will be like, oh, +5 to damage to a greatsword. It's like, but if I drop it, I die.
Or
every encounter becomes way more intense, and they're like, well, I need to. It becomes a funny moment. It was like, well, I gotta cradle this thing in my bed sack when I'm sleeping.
I need to lash it to my hand when I go to bed.
yes, I think a good example of good loot, especially in the D&D sense, is actually what our D&D group did in Nick's Hopeless Situation Warriors, because we were initially sent out to receive pieces of what's called the Ashen Crown in Eberron, and there were literally 5 pieces, which each had certain abilities and buffs to the weapon depending on who attuned to it. And there were literally 5 pieces, and there were, at the time, 5 of us. So we were just like, okay, I get this one, you get that one, you get that one. And we made a story out of it. Like, we are now the keepers. We're going to hold on to this part of the Ashen Crown. So to make sure that nobody can ever get all the pieces and form the Ashen Crown.
Exactly.
Again, like those are meant to be like oh, it's the ultimate weapon. Like it is like oh, these characters are gonna be like we need to. One of them is gonna be like, well, I want to hold the ultimate weapon. Instead, they were like, well, the world's in a bad spot.
We were just
We
like,
don't
nah,
want to reunite this powerful weapon. We also don't want it to be floating around. So guess what?
we'll
It's
just keep a
just
piece.
them, and
And we were just
they're
like, nah,
united.
we don't
They're
want this getting
united.
out,
They won't
potentially
unite.
causing another conflict. So we'll just keep our piece over here. This
They
is mine.
won't unite.
Don't touch it.
Oh yeah, you guys also don't even know the ritual to bring it all together.
No, you told one of us that. I think you told Stephanie's character how to do it.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you can do too is if you're tailoring loot to one or more members of your group, remember the old adage, be careful what you wish for. You may
Yeah.
get it.
It's the
You know,
always it's the monkey paw.
I want Hank's energy bow, but it's Hank's energy bow. And so now I have the heroes of the cartoon chasing me down to get Hank's bow back.
I want $100. Why are there so many male deers stampeding for my room?
Or in the Star Wars sense, you want a lightsaber. Cool. You get parts that can make a lightsaber. You need the other parts. And you also need to know how to actually make a lightsaber.
I had a player in one of my Star Wars campaigns who was not a Force user, but wanted a lightsaber. He was a clone that had been in suspended animation up through, he'd been in carbon freeze up through the time frame that the campaign was set in, which was 250 years after the sequels. And
That's a long stasis.
because he had respected the Jedi, he wanted a lightsaber. I let him have one. It was a basic lightsaber. It wasn't a fully maxed out on mods lightsaber. It was a basic lightsaber.
Pretty badass.
But you're not a Force user, so first of all, you cannot start with ranks in lightsaber.
Yeah,
And the difficulty on all of your lightsaber checks is upgraded once because you're not a Force user.
again,
Yeah.
that's proper. It's like
Yeah, and that helps. And then, as far as I'm concerned,
that
if
fits with
people
the
do get
lore,
good
the
loot,
concept.
or in the example of Star Wars, it's like, cool, you got a lightsaber. It's a good weapon. But your enemies also have lightsabers, so it's not like you have a great advantage over them because they got one too.
Again, like I've discussed with an individual that we know. Not going to spoil it, but we're talking about a campaign in the future with
I wonder who that could be.
It's total
non-traditional
mystery.
non-traditional Force sensitives. It's like, yeah, a lightsaber would not be in lightsaber wouldn't be their skill, but it'd be interesting to see them like try it to learn that and to repel a enemy that uses one. This can also attribute to a myriad of other skills in entirely different systems. But
And
the major factor is like, oh, I think I have a great example of a unique item that could be like a little bit unique given to a group of players. Say, something orb shaped.
be careful what you wish for.
You
You
just
might
might
get
make it a little more difficult.
Nick, what did they do with the orb?
They did a lot with the orb, but that's
I know they did a lot with the orb. Nick, I'm trying to get you to use 3 specific words so I can drop the car's sound bite in again. What did they do?
oh, I'm sorry. I'm completely blanking on like what that could be.
Nick. Nick. I'm so disappointed in you that I can't get you to say.
I even did the motion.
Are you sure they didn't?
They took it up, but Robert put it in their hands. So I feel
Hey,
he should be the one to start it up.
It's not entirely my fault. They decided to take it with them. I thought after
It's
having their body swap, maybe they don't want to take the orb that swaps bodies.
but it is your orb. I was throwing it to you, man.
But
It's not
it's
my fault. They love my stuff.
it can be it's very tempting to want to reward the players with items that they're looking for or things that will make the characters' lives easier.
Or not,
But you ha-
not even items. Like a good example for me is that in Nick's Heroes of Hut space, we were at this shadow port, and my character, a Trandoshan, he's a big game hunter. One thing leads to another because it's in an asteroid and the asteroid's shaking. I go and you're welcome, Daryl. I go and investigate what's causing these tremors. Big weird asteroid slug thing. My character's a little impetuous, starts fighting the thing. Somehow manages to kill it, even though this is like ship level.
It's a long as it was a long fight. It took like half an hour.
Yeah, Nick didn't even plan for it. He just said he did the whole giant monster eye behind you illuminating it all, and I was just like, how close is it? I stab
But
it. I stab it.
it still took you half an hour to go out that eye, through it, fighting it, and then go back
Yeah, I had to go to
through
the other eye, and then go in and kill it.
Again, it was
But
like an hour session. There's about an hour of the session in that. It was like it took a while.
yes,
Like
but
it.
at the end, I
We
did
just
kill
kept on
it.
cutting in there. We just kept cutting back. It's like, okay, you're fighting it, and like, here's the next part of it, and like you like stopping yourself from getting crunched by the jaws, and then like swinging around to the next eye.
Yep. And then
It took a full ass hour, and everyone was like, okay, we're doing this stuff, but
everyone was so
what's he
into it,
doing?
though. They were like, do it. Kill it.
I was like,
Do it.
okay, I just have to like cut back to those guys doing the regular stuff, and when you're having like your God of War battle in there.
Yeah, that's the closest I've gone to a God of War battle in Star Wars, but I end up killing it. So it stops
And
wreaking
it
havoc
ended
on the
with you
shadow
like,
port, and
and it ended with you like crashing it in there in front of everyone who's like having like a regular adventure. It's like, and you like pop it out.
and that's a great kind of reward is an event, an occurrence.
A, a Actually, yeah, you became the. It's
yeah,
called It was called before in Hot Tones the Miner's Horror, but you changed that name.
nah, it's Gorsk spray now.
But
But
yeah,
Gorse
you
as far as loot is concerned, I saved it. So the hut administrator on the shadow port, I did a great thing. So instead of like money or a good item, she gave
But
me,
your loot
well, it's kind of
was
an item, kind of a
a.
boon. She gave me an Argus disc, which for those of you who don't know, that's basically in the books, that's basically a disc that basically says your character is now an honorary hut. So
But
basically, you
also,
get 2 boosts to any interactions with huts as part of that
yeah.
family.
But also,
And that
you
was like, oh,
changed the name of that creature. It was like it was the Miner's Horse. Like no, Gorsk's Prey.
and that's a good example of a boon. It's like, okay, you did this great feat. You're basically an honorary hut, and huts are very egotistical. It takes a lot to get them to say, "You're one of us."
Respect, and also like everyone like respect because that was huge.
Yeah, and as a player, that impacted me more than if they just said, "Okay, here's 6,000 credits. Thank you for doing that."
Yeah. That's a great way of tailoring rewards to the PC without potentially breaking the game by giving them an I win button or a lot of cash or more significantly more XP than the other characters
While also
or
appealing
whatever.
to their player characters stuff and also fitting
Mhm.
in with the story that they were doing. Like they were investigating stuff. It's like you just went a little bit deeper and like
And I did play the whole Trandoshan. It's all about hunting because their god's the scorekeeper. You keep track of the game you've hunted and killed. And my character was like,
the
"Big
whole team
animal.
was
That's a lot
the
of
whole
points."
the whole team was going there. It's like you win one end, ripped out the eye, slid around, killed the other eye, just like
And Nick
rode
helped my
it back
character
into
in that
town.
because I would get XP, but I would also, after I kill an enemy, I'd also ask Nick, "Okay, how many points is that?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what else do we have loot wise in terms of advice?
I think one final advice is the biggest, and honestly, it's a question that I do have to ask about you guys.
Yes.
Dragon hordes. Those are very classic type of reward. Like how do you,
Yeah, and I know in D&D we're heading eventually towards one of those.
but in general, it's just massive hordes of treasure. How do you guys feel about those? Because again, that's a big question for a lot.
I would say at least in a D&D sense, as far as hordes are concerned, a way to make it good loot but still don't break the game and maybe also add a bit of flavor is that you tailor the horde to either the enemy or dragon you're doing. Like maybe a dragon that's more interested in knowledge would have hordes of scrolls and spells and artifacts, which could
Magic
be a
item
good reward
that
while
could
not
eat,
breaking the game. As far
And
as
but
money, maybe it's out of date money or old money that's not in circulation
or
anymore. It's still worth
silver,
something,
copper,
but not a lot.
silver,
or
copper.
you could maybe say that, you know, in the dragon's paranoia of having their treasure hoard stolen from them, that there's a spell on the treasure hoard that it's basically deadlocked in their lair, and this spell is not dispelled by the dragon's death.
That could work, especially with like a Dracolic or more advanced
So,
dragon.
and whatever the dragon's hoard is, the potential to imbalance is there, and that's a carrot that you can dangle in front of the players. Oh, there's
Yes,
all of these scrolls, there's all of this gold, there's all of this loot, there's whatever, but it can't go beyond the entrance to the cave.
yes, or at
It
least
can't
in
leave
a
the dungeon until and unless you find the counter spell.
yes, or at least in the sense of a money
Yeah.
hoard. Maybe don't make it the reward, make it the goal. Because a good example is in your Orbit project you and Daryl are doing.
Yeah.
The goal basically is make money, get money, enough to retire, live your life. So the goal is to get the money, and we've gone gung ho about it. Betsy and I are even thinking, okay, we want to find some way to get to a hut treasure world and just rob the vaults blind. We're going to make a lot of money, but that's the reward, but also the goal to end the campaign.
But it's a lot of there'll definitely be a lot more difficult. There's a lot of like troubles to get to
Yeah,
there.
or as far as a money hoard is concerned, tailor to the campaign. Like I know, Daryl, you've talked about your Raiders of the Lost Jedi. A hoard or a treasure trove is a good campaign endpoint. or
Oh, I know
goal
what
to
the end
seek.
game was for that.
But it's gonna also be a lot of like smaller objects that are far more wealthy than actual just like
Yeah.
in terms of in comparison gold.
Yeah, money's
The
good, but some objects are better.
the idea is the fact that that in terms of loot is much more, for lack of a better term, fluid. But you should never, you should try to evaluate the amount of loot that you get, but also try to make certain that your players want something. It's like, oh, they got this much gold. What's the +3+ sword that they want? How
Yes.
expensive is that?
Or
They'll be
other
like,
good advice. Like, as far as money hoard's concerned, that's good advice. Or, like in our example with me and Nick, know your players' characters and know what they want. Nick knew my Trandoshan character didn't really care about money. He wanted points, recognition. So he tailored the reward in that sense rather than a monetary sense.
and if I had to choose future rewards, it'd be like I'd give another big creature to take out.
Yes,
But
or Daryl's.
the next reward would be a big weapon
Yes.
on the stage. Be like, I can use that on the next big creature.
Or in Daryl's character in Legacy of the Force, is a big High Republic nerd. So Nick gave him a Jedi lightsaber gun.
Yes.
So he can nerd out over it and be like, oh, I've never seen one of these. Oh, this is good.
I want to use this, and this will come in handy against the big bad. But I also want to preserve relics of this kind of thing, and it'll chew up and spit out a lightsaber if I use it.
And when Nick and I have also led him to old High Republic vessels so he can explore them. We went into an old Jedi training room on a Republic vessel, and he was nerding out like, "Oh, I know what that is, and oh, look at those statues, and then oh, is that real High Republic Jedi armor?"
And that's part of the fact you can reward your players without XP or actual loot. You can't just reward them for their player interests, their ideas, and that's still good. But that's sort of and honestly, I'll call it up myself. That's what I like more. I like story beats, but if the mechanical stuff, it use oh, this is stuff that encounters with me, and I like that. That's cool. That's so cool.
And then the most easy advice of all: if you give your players money, give them chances to spend it.
Don't only give them chances to spend it, give them needs to spend it.
Exactly. Give them needs to spend it, so the whole trillions of
limited
credits scenario doesn't happen.
Yes, limited ammo, better armor, cooler
that reminds me of
stuff.
Steven's convention game, Slayer Industries, where it's literally, yeah, you get money, you get guns and bullets, but it's limited ammo, and ammo's expensive. So it's actually more profitable to use melee weapons than ranged weapons because, one, you're not paid a lot, but then you also have to pay for the ammo that you spent. So it's a balancing act.
And shopping sessions. As much as everyone makes a joke about it's a shopping episode. It's there's a lot of fun that can be done with that. And honestly, I think we should do one on shopping.
Well, our friends Steve and Steve from Me and Steve Talk RPGs just recently did an episode on shopping sessions.
Mm-hmm.
So I heartily
Maybe check
recommend
that out.
that episode.
Yeah,
We might circle back around and give our own unique spin on that later. I just don't want to do that too soon after theirs because I don't want to unconsciously steal any of their material because they're good guys.
because we do it better.
Snick.
Okay, Nick.
Did I say that?
Yes, you did. And Nick, you're starting to get too full of yourself. So I think it might be time for us to either start picking on you or just plain call it a wrap.
I think we did.
Yeah, we need to
pick
on him a little. Hey, Nick,
Yeah, we
played
need-
Roger Murtaugh.
Man.
Hey, Nick. So at our next let's see, our next game is D&D on Sunday. So we're getting millions of gold, right?
I don't have a camera right now, but I am holding up a finger right now.
Is it
Or Nick, you're definitely gonna do another MLP because we'll love to be so generous, right?
now he's holding up the corresponding finger on his other hand?
Yeah, for all of those who want to play the MLP one, if you want to make a generous character, also make them rich. It really helps.
I think we're in the closing time.
Closing time.
I guess so.
All right. So I guess it's, that time of the show where I say to check out our website at howwerollgaming.com. And when you go out to our website, you'll find links to all of our socials, Blue Sky, Facebook, Threads, and you'll also find information about our current campaigns, the games that we're familiar with running, and links to past podcast episodes, all sorts of good things.
Yep. You can also directly support the show through Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/howwerollgaming and you'll see our different membership tiers starting at just $2 a month, we'll give you special recognition on our Discord server, and higher tiers possibly giving you on-air credit and discounts on our new merch store that's actually going to launch any day now, because I know Daryl has been very busy with the designs. It's actually
It's looking good.
I have. There's all sorts of awesome stuff, and I keep thinking, "Oh, I could add this," and I just go a little crazy.
But
he showed us possible wrapping paper, and we just had to tell him, okay, well, that's a little too much.
Paper.
Yeah, but finally, if you have any questions you'd like us to answer, topics you'd like us to cover, or even submit your own RPG glory stories, send us an email at podcast@howwerollgaming.com.
Thanks, guys, and thanks everyone for listening. We hope that our ramblings were helpful, and we will see you next time. And a little cross promotion, some late breaking news. Robert and I, and possibly Nick, will be here in just a couple hours. We'll be stepping over to the aforementioned Me and Steve Talk RPGs.
Woo!
And
Yep.
And
Gonna do a
jumping
little
in
segment.
there, and exciting, some cross show synergy. So we hope you listen to that one too. We will throw a link to that one out there on our socials once it drops. But until next time, as always, I am Daryl.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Robert.
And this is How We Roll.